Right. So now we're going to continue the Gemara in Megillah. We're up to on 27b, and we're up to V'chachamim Oimrim Moichrin Oisa Memkar Oilam. The Chachamim say that you can sell it for an eternal sale. We had two opinions in the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda said that a shul has to be, you have to be able to rebuy it. You can only sell it for a limited amount of time. That was the opinion of Rav Yehuda. The Chachamim said you can sell the shul a memkar oilam for all the time, not a problem. So now the Gemara is going to bring up another halacha from which the Gemara is going to question our Mishnah. Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Shmuel. So this is a halacha which Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. What did he say? He says, Mutar la'odom lahashtin mayim betoich dalid ames shel tefillah. A person is permitted to urinate within the 4 cubits of davening. So say you daven somewhere, and let's say that place became holy because you davened, it became a place of prayer, and then you need to do your thing. So even though you just davened, this is still within the 4 amas, doesn't matter. Now, we're not talking about during the davening. The Rashi says, "V'dalad amas shel tefillah." Rashi says right away, "La'achar zman," later on. So we're not going to say that because you davened over here now, oh, this became a holy place, and therefore I'm not allowed to do it over there. No, we don't say that. You can go ahead, even within the 4 cubits, within the daled amas of the davening. So Omar Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef says to Rabbi Yehuda, Michael Mashmalon, what are you coming to teach us? You're making it sound like you came up with a halacha over here that a person is allowed to mashtin mayin within the 4 amas where he prayed. This is Tanina. We have it clearly in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. So it says like this. The question was, what is one permitted to sell a shul for? So Rabbi Yehuda says that moichrin oisel l'shum chotzer, that you can only sell it, you can sell it for a chotzer. In other words, there are certain degrading things that you're not allowed to sell a shul for. So what do? You sell it for a courtyard, and then v'leikeach masha yirtze yasa, and let the buyer do whatever he wants. So if the buyer is going to want to make it into a bathroom or whatever, he can do it. So why are you telling me this halacha? It's already very clearly that you can do that. Not only that, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda over there. But vafilu rabbanon, even the rabbis who disagree, and they say you're not allowed to sell a shul for a place to use as a toilet over there, as a beis hamayim. You're not allowed to sell a shul for that. It's degrading for the shul. The Rabbanon disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, who says sell it for a courtyard and then let him use it for wherever they want. No. If you know that they're selling it and they're going to use it for a bathroom, you can't sell it to them. So why don't the rabbis allow it? The Gemara says the reason the Rabbanon, they disagree on Rabbi Yehuda is Ella over there Beis HaKnesses, because you're talking about a shul. The Kiviyah Kedushate, the sanctity of a shul is permanent. So the Rabbanan disallow a person making a Beis Hamayim, making a place disrespectful from a shul. But here we're not talking about a shul. We're talking you davened over there. We're talking about you prayed in that section. That doesn't have a permanent holiness. During the time you prayed. And when you're done, you're done. I'm not sure why the Gemara uses just urinate. What about why is that not permitted? To relieve yourself, you're not allowed to if you daven there. Why does the Gemara specifically, or Shmuel say lahashtin mayim? Maybe because that was common. People did not go to relieve oneself. They had to go probably behind the city. There were special places for that. Or he says it, would there be a prohibition to relieve yourself within 4 cubits and where you prayed before? If there's no kedusha, there's no kedusha. What difference does it make to relieve yourself or to urinate there? What difference does it make? But in any event, he says that the 4 amas in which the kedusha is not permanent, lo tani, over there we didn't learn it. So since the rabbis are only talking about a shul, we can learn from the words of Rabbi Yehuda and the fact that the Chacham would not disagree with Rabbi Yehuda, and they only argue about a shul. That means that everybody disagrees that in a place which you daven, you can go ahead. So I guess the Gemara remains that with a question. There's no answer. So now the Gemara brings down Tana Kamei Pani Tana Kamei de Reb Nachman. So there was a Tana who was teaching in front of Reb Nachman. He said, Hamispalel marchik daled ames umashtin. He says, one who davens should not go right there, but should move away 4 ames and do it over there and urinate outside. This seems to be directly opposed to the opinion of Shmuel, that he says that the person is allowed to do that. But he says no. If you're davening, so you have to distance yourself 4 amas from the place you daven. He further says, V'hamashtin, if you are urinating, don't daven right there. Marchik daled amas u'mispal, you have to move away 4 amas and pray 4 amas away from where you urinate. So that's what the Tana, the rabbi, was teaching before Reb Nachman. Amalei, so Reb Nachman says to that teacher, he says, well, I don't understand. Bish loimo hamashtin marchik daled amas u'mispalel. I understand the first case that you say, that the one who urinates needs to move away 4 amas and pray there. Tanina, why does he have to move it? Because since there is urine over there, and you want to daven, you can't daven in front of urine. So it says, Kamo yarchik mehen umin hatzoya. How much does he have to distance himself from the urine or from the tzoya, From the feces, how much does he have to urinate? Move himself? Daled amas. So if you urinated, we understand why you have to move away 4 amas, because you're not allowed to daven in the presence of the urine, like it says in the Brisa, Tanina. But the other halacha that you're saying, this is Rav Nachman asking the Tana. If you were davening, so now you're going to distance 4 amas, meaning you davened already. Why can't you just do it right then and there after you're done davening to do a mashtin? That would be like Shmuel said. And he goes a further question. He says, if that case, people urinated all over the city of Nahardah, then you can't daven anywhere. If that is the case, then you have made all the roads in Ardah, you made them holy because somebody davened there. And then you're going to say that you're not allowed to urinate anywhere. Rashi explains, why did it say Kidashtino? The kula shvili de Ardah. She'ein loch daled ames bahen shaloi hispalu bahen evre drachim. Because you don't have 4 ames in the whole city of Nahardah in which passers-by have not davened. If you're going to say that a place you daven becomes holy, and then you're not allowed to urinate over there, so then you can't urinate in all Nahardah. Don't forget, they didn't have bathrooms in those days. People just to do it in the street, and the streets weren't paved either. So he says, and this is really basically what the argument that we said before against Rabbi Yosef, who said, I guess Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel. So the Gemara changes it. The Gemara says it's not a problem. If you daven somewhere, you finish your davening, go ahead. You want to urinate, you can do it right there where you daven, because your davening didn't give you any kedusha over there. It's just temporary while you daven. Once you finish davening, it's okay. So what he was saying over here is not to distance, but yisha. After, basically, we're saying, after you urinate, wait the time that it takes to walk 4 amas and pray. Give it a little time. Don't start praying right away. As the Gemara will explain, there is still drips coming, so therefore you should wait at least what it takes to go 4 amas. And the same thing is, if you davened, you should wait what it takes to go 4 amas. The Gemara is going to explain. Tani, Yisha. It's not that you should go 4 amas, but you should delay. Yisha kidei hiluch arba amas. You should delay as the time that it takes to walk 4 amas. The Gemara asks again, Bishleima mashtin Yisha kidei hiluch daled amas. We understand why when you urinate you should wait before you start davening for the time it takes to walk 4 amas. Mishum nitzotzes, because of the drips. Mishum nitzotzes, Rashi says, shelo yitanfu begodov b'nitzotzes shebe'amosei, so that the garments will not become dirty with the drips. In other words, he has to put on his clothes to daven. So therefore, wait what it takes 4 amas before you start davening. It seems like, and if they do get dirty, is that a problem with davening? A person who has drips of urine on his clothing. Is that a problem for the davening? Or the problem is that he doesn't have any clothes on, and that way, I'm not sure. It says not to get dirty. I know soya is a problem, but I'm not sure that that's absorbed in the garment, but whatever. So, but that makes sense why you should wait. Elo mispalel yishek day hiluk dalad ames lamali. But after davening, why do you need to wait 4 ames, or the time that it takes to work 4 ames before you start to urinate? What's the wait delay? Amar Rabashi says, Rabashi, shekol dalad ames tefilo soy sudura befish uruchushin merachshin svaf. That 4 ames, the time that it takes to work 5 ames, your prayer is still in your mouth. Your lips are still whispering the words of the davening. So you'd be urinating while you're still davening. So give it 4 ames after you finish davening, and then you go do your thing. You don't have to go all the ames out. You can do it right there. Okay. Now, since we already mentioned the urinating, we're going to see, the Gemara brings this down now. The Gemara brings a siman of Zalpan. The Gemara is going to say 4 things that the students ask. Zayin, Lamed, Pei, Nun. These are the names of the rabbis. Ben Zakkai, Rebbe Lezer, Ben Shamur, Reb Freder, Reb Nechuni, Ben Akona. There's others, but these are the 4 that the students ask them the same questions. Sho'alu Talmido ves Rabbi Zakkai. The students asked Rabbi Zakkai, Bameh herachto yomim. What did you do? What merit did you have that you lived such a long life? Bameh herachto yomim. What is the question? Be'ezeh zuchus. What kind of a merit that you merited to have long life? Omar lahem. So Rabbi Zakkai says to them, Miyomai lo yishtanti mayim betoich dalad ames shel tefillah. I never mashtin mayim, never urinated within the 4 ames of the davening. So that's why it brings in, that's the connection to what we learned before. But that means the Gemara said that it was okay. But apparently that was a suchus for him that he didn't do it. Even though the Gemara went through and said that's not a problem really. But he had more things besides that. V'lekinisi shem lachaverai. I did never give a name to my friends. That's called a nickname. Meaning, most likely a derogatory name. Call them not by the right name. Rashi later on brings this down a similar thing. Rashi calls it a degrading name. So I never nicknamed him or put a name on my friend. And another thing, yeah? You saying something? I don't hear you.
No, continue.
Veloi bitalti kiddush hayoim. I never wasted making the kiddush for Shabbos of the day. To the extent that the Gemara points out, Imo zikeni hoysali. I had an elderly mother. One time she sold her cover that was on her head, and in the money that she got for the kippah, she brought me kiddush for the day, so I have wine for kiddush. Kippah, Zokt Rashi, means cover. Kippah, Zokt Rashi, tzif. That's a kerchief for the head. And she went as far as selling the kippur. That means, I guess, because he asked her to, maybe, because that's how important it was for him. So we learned in Abraisa, Tono, Ishamesa, that was such a big schus, that when she died, Hinichala Gimel Meyes Garbe Yain, she left him over 300 bottles of wine. That's how the schus of buying the wine and giving up, that's how rich she became. Furthermore, Kishamesu, when he died, Hiniach Lebonov Shloishes Alpe Garbe Yain. He lived when Rabbi Zakkai died, he left his sons 3,000 barrels of wine. So you see how much important this mitzvah is. So the Gemara, Rav Huna have osar risa, the koyi kame de Rav. So he came to Rav. He wasn't wearing his usual garment. He was osar, means he was wearing a risa. Rashi says a min gemi. It's a kind of inferior kind of a garment. And he came to before Rebbe. In front of Rav. Amalei, so Rav says to Rav Huna, my high, what's this? How come you're wearing such arisa, degrading clothes? Amalei, so he said, Havili kiddusha, I didn't have kiddush, money for wine, for kiddush. Umashkante lahamainoi, so I collateralized my belt. And that must be a belt that had his regular clothes with it. Vasoyi bei kiddush, I bought for it money for kiddush. So I don't have my garments. So he saw how much Mesirat Nefesh he had to have the kiddush. So Amalei, so Rav says to Rav Huna, Yehei Rava, may it be the will of Hashem, the titoim bishiroi, that you should cover yourself, be covered with silk. That's a very expensive garment because he gave up. So he says, should be the will that you should titoim bishiroi, that you should be covered with silk. The Gemara relates now, ki ichlal, when he went to the chuppah, Rabba Bereid Rav Huna, when it came the time to marry Rabba, the son of Rav Huna, so the Gemara says, Inna Shkutzahava. He was a short little fellow. This Rav Huna was short. Gona Apurya, and he was laying down on the bed. So over there, I guess they made a party in the room. He was laying down on the bed over there. Asyan Banate Vekalte. So his daughters and the sons of Rav Huna, they came to the party, to the marriage of their brother. Sholchon v'shadyon minayu alei. So they would take off their overcoats, their clothing, and they put it on him. They didn't realize that he was sleeping. There was a short little guy. He was sleeping on the bed, and they put him on them. And ad the itum b'shiroi, until he was covered with silk. I guess they all came in with their fur coats, and then, until he was covered with silk. Sholchan, says Rashi, Sholchan means they undressed their clothing. Now, I'm assuming this is talking about their coats, their silk, their overcoats, until the was covered with silk. Shomar Rav, when Rav heard this story, the Ikpit, he got upset. So Rav got upset in Rabuna because he told him, I gave you a blessing. How come you didn't say, and you too? Maybe I would have merited to be full, have myself covered with silk as well. Omar, why was he upset? He says, how come you didn't say when I blessed you, and so to you? When I blessed you that you should be covered in silk, you should have said, and you too should be covered in silk. I'm a little bit not so clear. What was the big deal? He wasn't really covered in silk it wasn't his clothing and it wasn't it's not like the barrels of wine before, that he owned it, that he was rich. So they threw all the coats on him. So he was covered in silk. What kind of a bracha is that, to be covered by the clothing of your son, your daughters and daughters-in-laws while you're sleeping on the bed or lying on the bed. Rashi explained, what does it mean you should have said v'chein lamar? You should have said, af ato te mevarich lekach. You too should be blessed for it. Why did he tell him this? Shem ho'yisrotzen. Maybe it was an opportune time. Look, with this guy Mabi, maybe I could have also be fulfilled by me. Again, what would it be fulfilled? While he's laying in a bed, the people throw their still garments on him. Anyways, further, the Gemara brings down, Sholu Talmido ves Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. The students of Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua asked him, Bameh harachta yom, what merit did you do that you had a long life? Omar lahem, so he told them like this, Miyomai lo yosisi kapandria lebeis hakneses. Kapandria means a shortcut. I never made the shul my shortcut. In other words, if I needed to go to another place, I didn't use the shul as my shortcut to get to where I needed to go. I went around and around, not to use the shul as a shortcut. Kapandria zoktrashi mekatzir hiluche derech beis hakneses. That would be to shorten his walk through the shul. Didn't do that. Veloy pasati al rosh Am Kodesh. Further, he said, I didn't step on the heads of the holy nation. Sometimes when the students would sit and wait for the rabbi, if the rabbi goes between them, it seems like he's going on their heads. Rather, he'd go around and around to his place. Lo pasaiti al rosh Am Kodesh. Lo pasaiti al Kodesh. Kshahoyu hatalmidim bebeis hamedrash al gabi karka. When the students were in the Beis Medrash on the floor, the one who goes over where they're leaning to go ahead to sit to their places, it appears as if you're stepping over the people who are making your way there. He says, I never did that. This is some of the Zechusim he counts for himself. And further he says, V'loy nosasi kapai v'loy bracha. And he was a kohen, and I never raised my hands without making the bracha. I don't know why a kohen would do that. I mean, and why is that such a special zuchus? Well, that's what Rashi says, V'loy nosasi kapai. So Rashi, leduchon, raised my hands for the duchen. That's the platform, the kohanim, the birchas kohanim. They used to go up to the duchen to do the bracha of the kohanim, and the fish kohanim tzrichim levorich. They need to make a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoso v'tzivonu b'kdushosei shel Aaron b'mesechta soita. Why does Rashi bring down the whole bracha here also? And the Gemara said, why is this so important over here? And why would somebody go up to Duchen without a bracha? And why does Rashi have to Duchen, maybe that means, that Duchen is a platform. That's where the Kohanim would stand when they do the bracha. Why Liduchen, not Al Haduchen? I don't know. It's to still be looked at. Further. So the Gemara Shalu Talmidov es Rab Preda. The students asked Rab Preda, what did you do to earn a long life? Amar Lahem, he said to them, Yomai Lekidmani Odom Lebeis HaMedrash. Nobody beat me to the study hall. I was the first one always to the study hall. Veloy berachti lifnei kohen. I never made a bracha before a kohen. If there was a bracha, Rashi said by the Suda, veloy berachti besuda lifnei kohen. If there was a kohen at the meal, I didn't make a bracha before him, even though he was the rabbi, but he let the kohen make. The Omar Mar Gitin Dafnun Tes Amid Beis, because we learned in Gitin Dafnun Tes Amid Beis, the posuk says, "Vikidashtoi." You must sanctify him, give sanctity to the kohen, the whole davar shebegedusha, to any item of holiness, which is liftoyach rishon. He opens first, levorich rishon, is the first dibs on a bracha. Liftoyach rishon, to when it comes to opening, I'm trying to remember exactly what the opening, when somebody has to read or somebody has to get the first aliyah. Kohen gets it always, the first one of the 7 aliyah. He gets the first which has to bless. So that's the kohen. So I never did before the kohen. We'll see, the Gemara is going to challenge this. And I haven't eaten from the animal that gifts were not raised and separated. Every behema, mataniso, what is the gifts of the animal? You have to give to a kohen hazeroya, that's the leg, the front leg, and the lechayayim, and the cheeks, and the cave, and the stomach. Those are of the gifts, the 24 gifts that we gave to the kohen from the behema. So he never ate. Well, it doesn't apply now, but it applied in Eretz Yisrael, I guess, and but that's not the halacha. I guess the Gemara is going to say this, huh? Let's go further. I'm going to say what he went. Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak said it. Rabbi Yochanan, Osur lechel mibehema shaloi hurmu matnisa. It is prohibited to eat from the animal that the gifts, the Israel, the part that belong to the kohen, have not been raised. I think while we can't give it to the kohen, let me just take a quick look. Okay, so let's just read the Gemara. So it turns out that technically you're allowed to eat from the. You have to give the matonas to the kohen, but it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to eat the rest of the behema. So this looks like was a act of Chassidus that he did not eat from a behema which the gifts were not given to the Kohen. And Rabbi Yitzchak says, or named Rabbi Yochanan, that it's prohibited to eat from a behema without giving the matonis, but apparently not everybody agrees with that. And he says, that one who eats from a behemoth, the gifts have not been separated, is kilo eichel tvolim. That's like eating tevel. Tevel is before you remove the truma, you're not allowed to eat the rest of it. So he says the same thing is If you haven't given the parts to the Kohen, you can't eat the rest of it. But V'lei Silchas HaKavasei, the halacha is not like him. So maybe that's why it's saying, even though it's saying L'achalti b'behema, which means that's an extra zuchus, because he was allowed to eat, but he just didn't do it. Then further he said, V'loi berachti lifnei kohen. He says, I never blenched the head of the kohen. So the Gemara says, L'meimer de mal yusi, shall we say that this is an advantage, he did right? It's so good that you let the kohen go before her? But Rabbi Yochanan said, if you have a Talmud Chacham, if he allows to bench ahead of him, even if he's a high priest, that is an Amoritz, though, he's not his like a Talmud Chacham. You're not allowed, Talmud Chacham Chai Misa. That Talmud Chacham will allow even a Kohen Gadol, but if he's an Amoritz to go before him, is liable for Misa. How could you let a Kohen go before you when you're such a Talmud Chacham? Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, we learn it from the Pasuk. It says over there that Kol Masniai, Kol Misanai Evumavis. All those who hate me love death, which means Al Tikra Masanai Ela Masniai. Don't read it as those who hate me, those who make me hate it. In other words, you are causing, make me hate it. Because you cause people to hate Hashem. Why? Because one who sees the Talmud Chacham is degraded in front of the Amoritz, he allows the Amoritz, he gives him more covet. He says, there is no pleasantness in Torah, there's no benefit for Torah. Here you have this Amoritz going before the rabbi. So how come he let him go before him? That's not an advantage. And the Gemara says, Kika Omar Iu Bishavin. When was he saying that was they were equals? Meaning him and the Kohen were equals. So there wasn't a degradation by letting him for. He always let the Kohen go before him. I guess he still had the right to go if he wanted to, but he still let the Kohen go before him. Okay. So we'll leave it over here today.